So after I finished the last video, I remembered I had a request to do a video on a small flake that comes off some of the bifaces I do on video. Now the only question is, how small do we want to go when I'm working these little flakes? This one's an inch wide, but it's inch and a half, almost an inch and a half long. Do you want to go that size, or do you want to go a little bit bigger, or you want to go a little bit smaller? If you're new to the channel, you haven't seen me work one of these little tiny pieces, I don't think. But if you're not new, you know that I've worked very small pieces before. Now, I don't know if I have videos called working small flakes, but I have worked these. So how small do we want to go? I don't know. It's easier to start with a big one, because if it breaks, you know, you'll end up with something like that. But if this breaks right off the bat, I had to throw it away. Right? You want to see you work one of these really thin flakes? I bet you someone's going to say, yeah, do that one. That way you can skin off this original surface and have a hard time because it's already thin. We want you to do a thinning down of a thin flake. Yeah. Well, you know that's a real pain in the butt, right? That's probably why you want to see it. Or do you want to see a little bitty flake like this? I'm trying to think. What have I gotten requests the most of? I think I got most of my requests are for like ultra thin flakes like that. And I do have a video like that, relatively recent. Some of you guys just will say, just pick the most pain in the butt one that you can possibly imagine. That's what we want to see. Okay, well, this is pretty bad because it's got original surface and it's already really thin. This is pretty bad stuff. Yeah, as far as misery goes, it's pretty miserable. Now, I'll probably snap it at least once. I want to see how sturdy it is. I was complaining that it was really brittle in the last video. The big blade, the material was very brittle, but you never know. Yeah, it appears to be very brittly. Yeah. And once I finish this arrowhead, you're going to ask me, where do I get a pad like that? Because that's the secret. The pad is the secret. It's not the pad. I've seen guys make real thin flake points from stuff that's really thin and using pads that are flat and not domed like this one. So it's not necessarily the pad, although you can make one. If you can't make one of these pads on your own and you want to do flint napping, you're going to have a hard time flint napping, because making a pad like this compared to flint napping is easy peasy. Easy to make a pad compared to flint napping. Oh yeah. You can probably make a domed pad better than I can. And faster. It takes me about a half an hour or more to make a pad like this. Yeah, because I got to set up my stuff. I usually don't have a good sanding belt because I sand down stupid stuff on it. Yeah, I don't change out the belt. I just use that one belt for everything. And then when I want to sand some wood, it doesn't work. You might ask me, well, what am I sanding on it that ruins it? What am I doing? You're not sanding rocks on your sander, are you? I'm not going to say. I am not going to say what I've been sanding on my sander, okay? Yeah. So there. But anyway, it takes me a while to make these pads. I'm going to start making them. Yes, yes, I am. For sale eventually. Yeah, I've been saying that for a year now. Eventually for me is a long time. But I'm back in Texas temporarily. I've got my old little shop still here. Although it's mostly empty now that I've got most of my tools up in Vermont now. I still have some tools here. I can try to make some pads. I didn't make them in Vermont because I was busy with other work on the side. Side jobs that were driving me nuts. I want to do a video just on the adventures of trying to make money with flint knapping and the adventures with side jobs, okay? And explain why it's so difficult to do those if you're trying to do something else as your regular flint knapping gig. Like I try to do auctions and supply the auctions with items for you guys because I get requests. Where can I buy your stuff? Where can I buy your stuff? And that kind of thing. You know, I have regular stuff I want to do. I do practice up on flint knapping too, off camera sometimes. Yep, I do practice like fluting and pressure flaking off camera. Because I don't think you guys want to see repetition over and over and over again. 5 videos in a row of me learning how to do the fluting. I don't think you guys want to see that. I'll show you when I get better. But for now, I'm just going to show the stuff I'm offering in my auctions once a week, and it's been changing. The day changed to Wednesdays now. It'll go back to Mondays starting in January. In December it got kind of screwy because of the holidays. Yeah, the holiday and my travel. I had to do some traveling. I try to do my flint knapping at the last minute, yeah, so I don't get worn out. So I tried that before. I've tried flint knapping every day, 8 hours a day, just like a regular job. And on paper, looks great. But you suffer. At least I do, if I do it every day. I need a schedule of like 4 days off, 3 days on. And sometimes when I'm traveling or I got family business, I'm only able to do 2 days a week flint knapping stuff. I normally do 3, and that gets me enough to offer in the auction that is reasonable amount of stuff. Anyway, I will do a video on the adventures of trying to do this full time. Yeah. Because immediately everyone wants you to do these huge items. And they want you to do axe blades, large knife blades, axe blades, and hunting point sets. 12 hunting points. 1 dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen. Can you imagine me doing all those on video? You guys would get sick of it because it would be, you know, a month of nothing but the same point. if I were to try to do hunting points for people, and I would say to myself, yeah, I just film all that stuff that I'm doing for people. Yeah, I'd have a whole month of, 30 videos of nothing but the same type of hunting point over and over and over and over again. I wouldn't get bored of it, but you would. Oh, yes. I can hear it now. Is that all you do now is just hunting points over and over again? That's all you got for video? That's it? You're supposed to do that on the side. Do the hunting points on the side and give us original videos every time. Yeah. You got time for that. Supposed to be professional, aren't ya? Why can't you do the hunting points on the side? A bunch of those. And just give us the original videos. Yeah, what's the problem? Problem is, I'm only going to do napping 3 days a week. That's the problem. It's either one or the other. It's either side jobs or videos. It's not both. Why only 3 days a week? Because my posture suffers. My wrist suffers, although it's getting better. Yeah, I'm not overdoing it these days. And my mental state kind of suffers if I sit and do this all day, every day. Yeah, starts to drive you nuts. That's the problem. Yeah. You might say, well, that's just part of being in business. It's a problem. You can't handle it. Yeah, well, it's not like other businesses where you can have a predictable result on your production. Yeah. It's not like making baskets. You learn to make a basket, make it the same every time. Materials are not hard to get. Techniques are not hard to duplicate. The basket's not going to break on you. Can you imagine in the middle of making a basket, it just breaks? Or it catches on fire, poof, goes up in flames? It's gone. Can you imagine if it was risky? That's what Flintknapping is like. It's risky. You can't always guarantee. In order to guarantee the specs and the quantity, you've got to have 3 times the amount minimum of what you would normally use in terms of time and material. 3 times the amount. So let's say it would take me 10 pounds to do an order. Or it would seem that way. Yeah, okay, fine. I'll take about 10 pounds of stone. My yield is about, 5%, 5 to 8% yield by weight. All right, well, I just ordered this amount of stone. No biggie, right? Yeah, well, this particular job, let's just say that it has some very quirky requirements. Yeah. Some unusual requirements. Just a few unusual requirements, and they've all got to be a certain strange thing, everything. And usually what that means is a very large point with a very thin base, very thin stem. So it can be mounted onto an arrow. Large point that can be mounted onto a modern arrow. Not a little dart, but an arrow. And a very thin base, so it will fit on a modern arrow. Okay, fine. Seems easy enough. Well, you get going, and it goes well for the first few, maybe 3 or 4. Then it starts to get a little bit tedious. Like you're on number 5, and you're going, okay, I can probably do it faster because it's getting a little. I'm getting a little used to it. Let's do it faster. And then snap in half. Oh, dang it, I'm going a little too fast. All right, let's slow it down a little bit on the next one. But I still want to go faster, but maybe not as fast as I was trying to do it. Oops, broke that one too. Okay, I broke it 2 of them in a row. All right, let's go back to doing it slow. So you do it slow. It ends up being too thick because you're backing off. All right, this base is not thick enough. All right, so let's thin it down some more. But let's take some more time now to thin down the stem. Okay, so there you go. You take a little more time, get it done. Yay, finished. Now this actually took me longer than the first few that I did. Why? Because now I'm being extra specially cautious because the odds are catching up with me, you know? The odds are catching up. Beginner's luck, as they say. Usually you do well in the beginning. And it's no difference in flint knapping. Your mind is fresh. Your enthusiasm is high. Everything is seeming to be good. You know, morale's good. And you end up being successful. And you go, okay, now just repeat. But your brain says, let's repeat, but let's try to be more efficient. Yeah, because that's what makes sense. Let's try to be more efficient next time and go faster. No sense in taking forever. It shouldn't take forever. Like every other skill, you should be able to do it faster and better with each one. Yeah, in normal skills, but in flint knapping, you try to take a shortcut, guess what happens? You try to do it faster, and guess what happens? You try to work when you're tired and just say, make it happen. Push it out. Crank it out. Put your nose to the grindstone. Make a ton of them. Let's see. You can do it. You've done it already. You've done several. Now you're used to it. Just start cranking them out. Just make it happen. And guess what? The size isn't right. I went too fast. I just blew off a barb. Okay, I get it. The size is not right. You know, the barb doesn't match the width requirement now. I gotta put that one aside. All right, I'm still gonna go fast. Let's do another one. Oops, the base is too thick, or it's too thin. It's way too thin. I can't mount it. Yada yada yada. Blah blah blah. Things start catching up to you. You get frustrated, and you end up spending more time with each one rather than getting faster. That's what flint knapping is like. You actually have to spend more time as it goes than fewer number of hours. Yeah. Because you have to be more and more cautious as time goes on. Because the law of averages catches up to you, and if it doesn't in the beginning, it will catch up to you eventually. And you'll have to deal with the errors in both the material, or the problems in the material and in your technique. And it becomes a bit of a nightmare. Yep. Because there's risk. Yep. There's step fractures. There's specs to be met. You can't just wing it every time. The more you do, the more careful you got to be. The more time it takes. And the wear and tear on your tools starts to add up. Starts to add up. Anyway, I don't want to spend the whole video talking about that. I actually like flint knapping, even though I do it all the time. Relatively speaking, I'm thinking about it all the time. I'm watching other flint knapping videos. You would think I'd get sick of it. Well, I would if I had to do it every day, 8 hours a day, nose to the grindstone, make it happen, and work no matter what the conditions are. I can do that with something that is not risky. That's a no-brainer. Yeah, I can work that way, and I have worked that way for years. Can't do it with this profession. Which gives you some insight in how they used to do it in the past. Flint knapping requires a lot of support. You can't be hunting. You can't be doing anything else, building anything else, making anything else. Especially if your source of material is far away. You got to spend time traveling. And you're not really hunting on your way there and back because it takes time out of your day to go hunting. So you pack up your food. Now, if you're a flint knapper back at the campsite and you got to pack up your food, where are you going to get it from? Well, you're probably going to trade people some arrowheads or bifaces for your food, pack it up and go on a trip to the quarry or to your source once a year, twice a year, or whatever. It takes time. So you got to think about how they managed their time back in the day compared to how we do it now. And it's probably very similar. The same problems happen. The more you're expected to do of the flint knapping, the more difficult it becomes, and the more material you have to use, and the more time you've got to spend. Yeah, you get better at making them, but the law of averages, it catches up to you when there's risk, and a lot of times you end up breaking the stuff, especially if you want to do it in a hurry. Especially people that expect you to be better at it over time. Just like any other, it seems like it would be just like any other craft, handicraft. What's the matter, dude? They might say. What's the matter, dude? I mean, you made 100 of them so far. How hard can it be now? You should be expert now. Yeah, well, there's other factors involved, like boredom and trying to get faster by taking little shortcuts. You can take little shortcuts in other handicrafts, or you can increase, you can decrease the time of certain tasks. But in flint knapping, you start to play with those numbers, and it starts to cause errors because there's risk involved with every single aspect of flint knapping. So, it gives you kind of an insight of how it went in the past as well. So I'm going to be looking into that, trying to analyze my experience with knapping full-time with how it could have been back in the day. Who was doing the flint knapping? Was it everybody or a certain craftsman? Who was it doing it? And how successful was it? And what problems did they encounter? That sort of thing. You don't really know for sure because I'm just speculating, right? But I can try to do it the way they used to do it. And then, make some comparisons to how I'm doing it. Let's see how it goes. Now, you just saw me break this. Now, if I was building to spec, I would have to start over, but I'm not building to spec. And if you look at some of the artifacts, the ones where you find several of these in the same campsite, they're slightly different from each other in most cases. There are slight differences in size and shape. The overall design is the same, but there are differences in sizes and shapes. And some of you might be thinking that's because of resharpening. They might have broken it when they're hunting and they resharpened it so it's a different size than the other arrowheads. Well, yeah, that's a plausible explanation, but something like this could have happened to them as well. And they just rework it because it's broken in manufacture, but they had to keep going with it because they have limited supplies, or it doesn't really matter to them what size necessarily because it's so lightweight that it could be basically any size between 1.5 to 3/4 of an inch, and it wouldn't affect the flight of the arrow because the weight isn't much different when it's this small. So it could be an error in manufacture that caused the different sizes, or it could be just the size of the flakes they start with. If you start with a small flake, you get a small arrowhead. Large flake, large arrowhead. And if you're able to resharpen the big ones, then go ahead and do it. If you break a small one, oh well, you can't really resharpen it all the time. It's just way too small. Some of you say, well, I want to see you make a flake arrowhead as large as possible with the thinnest possible flake with the most possible problems potentially. That way we know how to take care of all the problems. Yeah. Well, I'm going to make several of these flake arrowhead videos, and hopefully I'll cover all the problems, or maybe most of the problems, so you can see. I won't be able to capture all the problems in one video, I don't think. Yeah. On this one, I broke the tip off, or I lost length several times. And it's not as thin as the original flake. You know what I'm saying? Original flake was longer and very, very thin. Do I make them that thin with a flake that long? Yeah, I can, but this material is very snappy. Normally I can hit the base and the tip won't pop off on something this small, but this one popped right off very easily, more easily than I expected. On the next one I can probably work the base and not worry about it too much because I'm getting used to it. Yeah, and I can work these flakes more easily the more I get used to it. But there's still a risk, and the faster I try to go, the more risky it gets and the more I break. So I gotta slow down with each one until I get into the groove, and I can probably figure out what the length is for the least tip breakage, because right now I smacked that base really hard and nothing happened to the tip. It didn't fly off. I hit it harder right a second ago than I did earlier, and nothing happened to the tip. So with this length, I can pretty much hit the base with any force I want, and it's not going to make the tip fly off. Was that a consideration back in the day? That's the thing. I think it might have been. Good chance that it was done like that. Most artifacts are not long. They're short. They're 3 inches or less. Oh yes, in case you didn't know, most artifacts are not long. They're not thin or ultra thin. It's rare to see one very, very thin and very, very long, and even rarer to see them very long and very thin. That's why they make such a fuss out of those very long and very thin ones, because they're rare. If you want to do a lot of these arrowheads or projectile points, you're more successful if you make a bunch of stubby ones, thick stubbies, than you are if you make long thin ones. Just the way it goes. You might say, well, if you're skilled, you can make long thin ones just as easy as you can make short stubby ones. Yeah, skill. What's the matter? You're not skilled? Well, we know that. Yeah, we know that you're not skilled. That's why you don't do it. Yeah. You're just full of BS. Yeah, well, it's possible. I could be totally wrong, yeah. I'm just going by what I know. And what I've been showing you on video. I demonstrate on video. And I demonstrate my style, what I have developed to overcome problems that I encountered when I first started knapping. I couldn't get arrowheads of this size with the techniques that I saw when I was learning in the beginning. Yeah. I tried a pressure flake on a flat pad, snapola. I tried to make arrowheads with pressure flakers with pointed tips. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was using stone that was way too hard. The tips would bend on me. They'd bend and get dull really fast, the copper tips. And then, you know, I started with antler too. And I said, you know what? This antler is breaking. It's in damp weather. It doesn't work. It's actually the stone is eating the antler for lunch. What did they do back in the day? Well, I learned that you had to dry out the antler if the weather's been very wet and humid. You got to dry out the antler, stick it next to a fire, or, you know, put it above the fire in a lodge. The way I dealt with it was I just put it in a dehydrator. That was my lodge, the dehydrator. Dry out the antler so I won't get eaten for lunch when I'm flint knapping after being exposed to damp weather for weeks and weeks. You gotta learn all this stuff. And then I said, you know what? I gotta think of ways to do this that make it enjoyable. Yeah. So I developed my own style to make it enjoyable for me. Because if it's not enjoyable, or if it becomes too much of a pain, your body's telling your brain, you gotta hold on, put the brakes on, procrastinate, avoid it, get distracted, look for something else. And you don't end up doing it anymore. Yeah. So you can't get into that problem. Same as back in the day. It can't be something that is completely miserable day after day. They probably had a way to keep it interesting. I think one of the best ways to keep it interesting is to nap in a group, tell jokes. If you're napping by yourself, make sure that you have other materials on hand that you can use for your arrowheads. Bones, deer tines. You know, I don't feel like napping today, so I'm going to make myself a bone arrowhead by grinding it You know, seashells. You can grind down seashells. You can use alligator gar scales for arrowheads. You can use all kinds of things. I think sometimes you can even use thorns, large thorns for arrowheads, although I don't have any experience with that. Maybe some of you guys know. I guess there's some locust trees that have large thorns that can be used for arrowheads. I don't know. But anyway, you give yourself an option so that way you're not flint-knapping all the time. Not depending on it all the time, because it's really risky. Yeah. And the ones that are really skilled at flint-knapping, and they have years and years experience, they're probably supported by somebody, or they're gathering their food with trapping, and they're using the flint-knapping to defend their trapping lands from other people and predators that are getting into their traps and stealing their food. Predators like to go after things caught in traps. Oh yeah. So you're getting your food from your traps, but you're flint-knapping so you can kill predators and kill the thieves that get after your animals that you're catching in traps, or defend your fishing grounds, or whatever. Maybe you're defending your farmlands because you're eating a lot of plant foods that you're cultivating or gathering. You know, you can kind of cultivate wild plants and have these areas where, let's say, there's walnuts or pecans or mulberries or blueberries or whatever. You defend those against people and animals. What did I do? I'm starting to get little cuts. It's very sharp. Oh yes. If I'm not paying attention to where these shards are going. Yeah, I cut myself on the edge right there. So it's good like this, just like this. I can mount it to an arrow. No problems. But I'm going to put notches in it. And I'm going to sharpen that tip a little bit better, so it's really pointy. And why am I not using antler to show you how it was done in the past? I do have videos where I use antler on this channel, so just look for those. Abo style. I also have an Abo style channel all by itself called Allergic Hobbit. It's nothing but natural tools. On this channel, you're going to get improvised techniques and winging it type of techniques. Opportunistic flint knapping. Random stuff. Chaos. Yes. Because for me, if I don't have to worry too much about the format on this channel, I enjoy it a lot more. If I can joke around and stuff and make funny voices, I like it even better. But for some people, it's a little bit unnerving. Yeah, I understand. I understand it. It's a little bit weird to hear a separate voice, all kind of weird, out of nowhere. Yep, I know. All right, here we go. We're gonna try to notch this with beautiful, very narrow notches. All right, that's what you want to see. Oh well, you're gonna get what you're gonna get. I don't know how this is gonna respond to the notcher, so you're gonna get what you're gonna get. Yep. And so far, it's okay. So far, so good. As long as I can get good pop outs like that, I can keep going. I need to do something on the other side. Keep it symmetrical. Although a lot of these real arrowheads of this size, they weren't that symmetrical. Believe it or not. Yeah. Symmetry wasn't really an important thing back in the day. Not really. With some cultures, yeah, they were very, very concerned with symmetry. A lot of the paleo types, very concerned with symmetry. But with this type, especially in the age of the bow and arrow, symmetry went out the window a lot. Especially in the desert. I broke off this barb there. You might think this is the barb down here. No, that's the ear. This is the barb up there. Yep. Now this is pretty common. It's a pretty common break to break off the barb. You can fix it though. Yeah. It's not a difficult fix. I will show you. Oh yes. Yeah, it requires removing material. So it's not really a fix. Because it gets more narrow. Yeah. And you're cheating. Because you're making it more narrow. Still fixing it. Still looking more symmetrical. Now with this stuff, this Dacite, it's easily snapped in half. So I could snap it across the neck. Easily. Oh yes. Some of you guys might be saying, well, wait a second. I want to see perfect symmetry so I know how to do it. Perfect symmetry so I know how to do it. I don't watch for mediocrity. I watch for professionality. Yeah. Good luck with that one, on this channel. I make fun of the way people talk and stuff. And I talk funny too. I start making up words. It's part of Flintknapping. You got to make up some words. Right? You're not a talented professional in Flintknapping unless you make up some words. Make up your own definitions for stuff. Yeah. Right? Right. No? Well, I better not hear these weird words out there then. Stuff I never hear of, never heard of before. It's terminology just popping up out of nowhere. I don't see it in the literature. I don't hear it in conversation among nappers. Where does it come from? I don't know. It's a mystery. So, I'll make up some of mine too. How's that? Yeah. So I just trimmed the sides a little bit, and it looks like I didn't break off the barb on that side. Yep. Are these arrowheads more breakily than normal when you make them on little flakes? Yes, they are more breakily. They are, in my opinion, they break a lot more. You get a lot more unevenness, a lot more asymmetry. That is a word, actually. You get a lot more error and oddness. Yep, with these when they're small and made on flakes that are already pretty much at the thinness that you want when you're finished. It's very difficult to make points. It seems like it wouldn't be, but it's difficult to make points out of material that's already thinned. It's like working a slab. It's not that easy because they break so easily when you're trying to shape them. Now, the way you get around it, I suppose, is just don't worry about thinning and just work around the edges. But on this one, I had to take off the original surface because that was part of the being pain in the butt to knap. Everyone wants to see how to overcome that. Did you see how I overcame that original surface? I had to use indirect percussion on a really small piece, so I can really drive those flakes. When I first started to learn, no one was driving long flakes on these little points, unless they were expert pressure flaking guys. And even so, they ended up with very mechanical looking points. They didn't look like they were real. They looked very methodically made. The cross sections were very even. There was no risk involved in the notching or the barbs. It's all very bulky, all very thick. So I said, you know, this style of flint knapping that exists doesn't really correspond to the artifacts that I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is a lot of errors in the original flint knapping back in the day. A lot of risk taking, a lot of ridiculously thin areas, a lot of asymmetry. Stuff like that. That's too asymmetrical. Yeah. Why did I do that? I did not do that on purpose. I did not even do that. I was trying to make it a little more delicate to show you what is possible. And I probably encountered some incipient cracks while doing the notching. There's, you know, doing the notching installs incipient cracks many times, and that's probably where it opened up from. Yeah. So I reached the limit. I need to know where the limit is, so it's not a total loss knowing where the limit is. So yeah, I know where I'm thinking I'm knowing where the limit is on these. So the next one is not going to be as difficult. Yeah, the next one should be a little bit easier. I got plenty of room. A lot of you guys want to see these little ones because it's something that you are able to do because you have this material. You have the flakes. You just don't know how to prevent the breakages. Because if you did know how to prevent breakages, you wouldn't be asking me to do one. You would be in Arrowhead making heaven, because you've got thousands of these flakes. The problem is, you keep breaking your stuff. Keep breaking it. And it doesn't look right. It doesn't look real. When you are successful with it, it looks mechanically made. There's not the risk taking. There's not the random flaking. There's not the ridiculously thin areas. And there's not the beautiful artistic style. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I encountered the same stuff. When I started napping on flakes. And I would nip them around the edges with a pair of pliers. I wouldn't be doing this chipping with a flaker. And with the notches, I'd use just a screwdriver. You guys have watched my channel over the years, you know the story. But you want to see very finely made, artistic looking arrow points from small flakes to see how to do it, or see the potential, or to give yourself a baseline so you understand, all right, this is what's possible. I need to know what's possible before I can do it. Yeah. Or I need to see what's possible before I even attempt to do it. I'm not going to attempt it if it can't be attempted by someone else. Yeah. You'll say to yourself, I can't attempt it if it's not attemptable. Yep. If it can't be done, I need to see what's going on. See the obstacles. Can't attempt it unless I know all the obstacles. I need to know how many licks it takes to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop. How many attempts does it take to get to a successful arrowhead from these little flakes? You might think, one flake, one arrowhead, anything less, and I'm stupid. Why can't I make one arrowhead, one flake? Or let's just say I have 1 out of 4 that break, right? Shouldn't be like 1 out of 4 that's successful. That's what you might be thinking. Should be able to get better than 1 out of 4. No, you might not. It might take 10 flakes to get to where you want to go. And it might start taking you longer and longer to do each one, just to guarantee yourself success. Instead of shorter and shorter times, it'll take you longer and longer times. Now, if I'm breaking these with indirect percussion, why do I still use indirect percussion? Isn't that the definition of insanity? You're using the same technique over and over again, expecting different results? Isn't that insanity? Why are you using the same technique over and over again? Why are you using flakes over and over again when you're not having success? Isn't that insanity? No, it's called practice. Okay? Doing something over and over again, expecting a different result. It's called practicing. This idea that that's insanity. Yeah, you can believe that, but that's for people who want to ignore what real insanity is. Who wants to ignore what real insanity is? Insane people. They don't want you to know what real insanity is. The definition of insanity, if you think the definition is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, you have no concept of the activity called practice. Flintknapping is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, because eventually you will get a different result. Yeah. It's funny how Flintknapping can show you that the rational way of thinking of things. Instead of the stupid way of looking at things. Yep. I'm doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And you know what? I'm going to get different results. I might tweak it, but it's basically the same thing over and over again. And yes, I am expecting different results because I will eventually get different results. Maybe not right away, maybe after 10 tries, maybe after 3 tries. You know, how many arrowheads does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? Think of it that way. You remember that old Tootsie Pop commercial? Mr. Owl, sorry to disturb you, but how long does it take? How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop? And Mr. Owl says, let's find out. So, let's find out. He did the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Yep. Of course, he cheated and chomped on it. Took a shortcut. But if he did it right, he would have been licking and finally have different results, because he'd eventually reach the center. Yeah. But he took a shortcut because he wanted the middle. Oh, yeah. He handed back that little stick that the Tootsie Pop was on. Yep. What's the moral of this story? What's the point? What's your point? No pun intended. What's your point? Why are you telling us all this? Well, you should be thinking about this stuff while you're napping. I think you should be thinking about this stuff. Otherwise, you're just napping. You're not gaining much from it other than arrowheads. You might as well start gaining some life lessons. Yeah. Start thinking to yourself, you know what? Flintknapping is showing me all the BS around me. Because I know for a fact that if I do the same thing over and over again expecting different results, I'm not insane. Yeah. That's not the definition of insanity. Here's one thing that insane people think. You look at an artifact, right? And you see it's broken. And you know it's broken in manufacture. Yeah. Yep, definitely broken in manufacture. Because, you know, the base is partially done. It's got some notches in it. But it just broke after the notches were being put in. Either being put in or just after or just before just before finishing. It's broken in manufacture. So you look at it and you go, I know how they broke that. Yeah, it shows me right here, right? Because it's it's broken during manufacture, so I'm seeing how they broke it. Now, insanity would say, in order to learn how to do it the way they used to do it, I'm going to do it so I don't break it in the same way. That's how I know that I'm doing it right. No. If you are not breaking it in the same way, you are not doing it the way they used to do it. Think about that. Some of you going, yeah, we know. Yeah, but do you put it into practice? Are you breaking your stuff the same way they used to break it in the past? If you're not, or if you're forcing yourself not to, you're not doing it the way they used to do it. If you think you are by avoiding their mistakes, you are not doing it the way they used to do it. You're being insane. Or I should say, to be nicer, you're being irrational. Yeah. You're not thinking straight. And yeah, it feels like it's wrong. Like, no, you're wrong. You know, you got to learn to do it right. Can't make the same mistakes they used to make. If I want to learn to do it right, I got to do it without their mistakes. Yeah, well, sorry to inform you that that's the definition of insanity. You refuse to see reality. That's the definition of insanity. You have a strange relationship with reality. Very strange. I've seen, nappers say that I need to avoid doing stuff that they did in the past. Don't do it like they did it. In order to do it like they did it, you can't do it like they did it. Yeah, that's insane. So what does that mean? Do I break stuff the same way they used to? Yeah, if I start using natural tools, I'm gonna see how they used to break them, and I better be breaking them in the same way, or I'm not doing it like they did it. And yeah, I've broken many points in the same way they used to make them, the same way they used to break them. I don't like the fact that they're breaking in manufacture and I'm splitting them diagonally all the way down during the final finishing, because they do the stem and the base first and then the blade. I don't like it when I break it the way they did. But if I want to learn how they did it, I've got to do it the same way, including the breakages. And if the tips are flying off, because you can tell sometimes the tip is broken off in manufacture, if I'm not breaking the tip off in the same way, I'm not doing it like they used to do it. Yeah. So, do I break it off the tips the same way? In many cases, yes. Because I'm being expedient. And I found out that a lot of these artifacts in the past were made in expedient ways. At least to me, that's what it looks like. Expediency causes a lot of these breaks. Bold flaking and risky types of knapping are breaking these things. So I said to myself, well, I guess it got to be risky. There's got to be a reason why they were being risky. With all the problems inherent in knapping, and they were still taking big risks. Why? There must be an advantage. And what's the advantage? The advantage is, with a lot of these materials, you have to be bold and aggressive in order to thin them down. Yeah, I say you got to tiptoe through the tulips many times. But when a time comes to do a critical flake, some of those critical flakes require a lot of force, and you got to be prepared to use a lot of force and expect sometimes to get breakages. But you just got to apply that force and use a technique that requires a lot of force, because that's the way they used to do it. Yeah, it's not only in the material, like it's not only in the antler, it's in the actual procedure and how they used to do it. And you can use the same procedure with different materials for your tools. You don't have to use the same tool to use the same procedure. You can use a different tool and approach it with the same mindset. That's what I do. I'm using copper, steel, aluminum, but I'm thinking I'm using the same mindset by being bold, aggressive, taking risks, and trying to preserve width. A lot of these points are broken in a wide state, trying to thin down a wide point and snapping it in the middle, where they could have thinned it easier if they had just reduced it down in size. They're trying to thin it while wide, while trying to preserve the most width possible. They're really smacking the edges really hard and trying to get these things thin while still wide. When, obviously, it's much easier to thin it down when it's more narrow. Why would they do that? I don't know, but if you're not doing it that way, the way they used to do it, that means you're not doing it the way they used to do it. Okay? Okay. Why do I say that? And why do I bring that up? It's fairly common for me to bring that up in the videos. I bring it up a lot because somehow insanity creeps back in and everyone ignores it. They ignore how they used to break them in the past, and they don't pay attention to that. In fact, they want to learn how not to do it that way. Well, you're learning how they didn't do it. That's what you're learning. Thinking that you are learning how they actually did do it. Okay? All right. It's not just in the antler or the bone flakers or whatever they were using. It's in the mindset and the technique. Okay. In fact, I think the mindset and the technique are more important than the materials used for knapping. But that's just me. That is my opinion. I can see the argument that it's better to experiment with natural tools. Do the experimental archaeology with natural tools. Yeah. It does make more sense to use the natural tools. But you can still learn the mindset regardless of the tools you're using. Okay. Now, I'm keeping this relatively thick. All right, see how thin? This is the first one. I'm keeping this next one thicker. On purpose, because I'm going to be hitting the base again. Yep, I'm going to be doing the same thing, expecting different results. Because I know that I can eventually get different results. Yeah. All right, I won't mess too much with the edges. I'm already starting to reach my limit as far as how effective I'm being on the edges. All right, so I'm going to start shaping. It might be better. Well, sometimes it's better to shape this concavity before I start notching. Now this one's going to be considerably larger. Yeah, it'll be larger. No big deal. I wanted it to be larger anyway. That's my excuse. It's going to be larger than the other one. But same design. The other one became smaller because I kept snapping it. But that's the design I want. I want a side notch with a concave base. There are side notches with straight bases and convex bases, but I like the concave base. Okay? That's because I like it. The only reason. You don't have to do it this way. There are several ways to do these. There are different styles in the archaeological record. Just so you know. Most of you guys already know it because you're collectors and stuff. All right. How would I be doing with this with antler? It's a valid question. I'd be doing it with a lot more stress. Copper is so much nicer. But yeah, I can do it with natural tools. It's just more stressful. And yeah, they did have stress back in the day. For sure. And maybe they would sing and dance and stuff before they started knapping. That way they'd be in a good mood. And then as they progress along and they break a few points, they take a break and do some more singing and dancing and get cheered up again before they attempt the next one. Who knows? Maybe they had some intoxicating substances to help them get over the anxiety and misery and the drudgery that sometimes this becomes. I don't know. Do you know? It's possible. Seems like a good idea. Do I use any intoxicants? I use caffeine, and on occasion I'll smoke a cigar and use a nicotine. Although I can't do that too much. I don't recommend it, but it does have an effect. Yeah. Caffeine is much healthier, I think, than nicotine. But they both have an effect. And I have napped while smoking a cigar. And I have napped while drinking coffee. I know that the cigar produces a lot less jitters. The caffeine makes me all shaky. The nicotine doesn't. But the nicotine makes me dizzy in many cases. So I'm not really being as precise as I could be. It messes with depth perception and that kind of thing too. The nicotine does. With me anyway. It doesn't really matter too much in the beginning stages. It wears off pretty quick, so, after a couple hours of napping, the effect's not there anymore. But I'm already in the zone, so it doesn't matter. Okay, so I am doing the base first on this one. And then I'm going to do the notching. Okay, so I made it concave first. Which is a little bit of a tweak, right? There's inherent risks with notching itself. So it's not completely risk-free now that I've got the base done. Notching when I've got such a big concavity has its own risks. But I think I can pop out the notches without much difficulty. Thinking. Yeah. All right, so yeah, steel is the best material for notching in my opinion. Oh yes, so much better than copper, aluminum, antler, all that stuff. In my opinion, yeah. And this is just a simple nail. I think this one is a 16 penny, but I prefer 20 penny nails like that one. See the difference? Very much different. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a 16 penny. $16D nail. Pretty sure. If I'm not, it don't matter. Just do whatever works for you. You don't have to go exactly by what I do. You can say, I use horseshoe nail. Yeah. Cool, man. I'm not going to go, horseshoe nails, they stink. Nope. You want to use horseshoe nails, more power to you. I've used them once or twice. They're too bendy for me. Unless I'm using the wrong type. And maybe there's different types, I don't know. Could be. I'm not a good horseshoe nail guy. I don't know anything about them. I'm not a farrier, right? I knocked this off. I knocked off the shoulder right there. That part. Yeah, trying to be narrow. Trying to walk the straight and narrow. Yeah. Broke my shoulder trying to walk the straight and narrow. Yeah. You can make a t-shirt of that. Flintnappers will know what you're talking about. You got a Flintknapping shirt on, and it says, I broke my shoulder when I was trying to be straight and narrow. They know what you're talking about. It's code. It's Flintknapper's code. Yep. I'm sure we can come up with lots of them. With hundreds of those expressions. One of my daughters is a graphic artist. She's going to help me design my logos and my t-shirts. And yes, I'll eventually have those. Okay. Just when I was getting happy thinking about t-shirts, I got too aggressive. See, that's the inherent problem in the making the base too concave. See? Same issue. And it looks like the same exact break. Yeah. This one I made that break when I'm working on the base. This one I made the break while working on the notch. Am I going to eventually make it? Am I eventually going to make one? Yeah. What is the problem? Why is it breaking? Because there's too little distance there. I got to make either the notches higher up or make them less deep. Or both. If I want to avoid that. And you might say, well, yeah, that's doing it differently, expecting different result. No, I could still do this. I can continue to do it this way, and eventually I will get deep notches, deep base, and no break there. I just got to be more careful. But if I don't want this to be another 3-hour or 2-hour episode, I gotta either not make the notches as deep, or the base not as deep, or the point not as thin, or all three, or a combination thereof. Alrighty, here we go. How much is it? This is attempt number 4. Now, back in the old days, all this breakages would have been off camera on the side, not shown. Because it's a little bit nerve-wracking. The ones that watch this for entertainment, they don't want to see that part. Because for them, this is a spectator sport. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't mind that you watch this as a spectator sport. But on this channel, you're not going to just see the games. You're going to see the practices and the warm-ups and the drama and stuff like that. Behind the scenes. Not just the games, okay? Not just the big flashy show with all the scores. Score! Good flake. Score! Good arrowhead at the end. You're not going to see that. Oh, you're going to see some of it, yeah. But you're going to see everything else too. And maybe you don't want to. Maybe you do. Yeah, for those of you who watch the channel to learn, you might be surprised to learn that not everyone watches the channel to learn. Yeah. I'm finally getting more returning viewers than new viewers. Yeah. Returning viewers is actually now outnumbering the new viewers. So I don't have to keep saying, for those of you who are new, because there's less of you now. Most of you guys are returning viewers, which is very good. I like it. Yeah, because I'm looking at all the comments. Taking in all the feedback that I can. Let's see where I'm going to go with some of this stuff. Because, yeah, I am concerned about what you guys want to see. And that includes you no-talk guys. I don't mind that you don't want me to talk. I'll make some of those videos too. I don't mind shutting up. Nope. I was just thinking... Kevin didn't want to come into the shop today. Kevin, my little dog, he didn't want to come in. It's unusual because he usually wants to sit down while I'm napping. He'll sit out right outside the door. I have 2 different sheds in my backyard to my old house. I'm at my old house. The big shed has a hole under the door, in one of the doors. I made a makeshift little back door. Anyway, he's able to push his way in through a weak spot that he made, and able to come in and sneak into my shop. He'd rather come in and sneak in than me call him in. Yeah. He'd rather be sneaky than come in with permission. Yeah. That's how sneaky he is. Oh, yeah. There's got to be something to that. Yeah. Some people don't want to do flint napping unless they can be sneaky about it. Yeah. How'd you make that? I'm not telling you. You don't want to tell us how you made it? No, I'm not telling you. If I told you all my secrets, I wouldn't want to flint nap no more. You might say. People might say that. I think I know some people like that. Well, I don't know them personally, but I've seen them talk that way. They say, why should I reveal what I know? Doesn't do me any good. Besides, I'd probably lose interest if I showed you what I do. Why would I lose interest? Why would someone lose interest in flint napping if they start showing people what they do? Well, they start getting maybe some criticism. You know, you probably shouldn't do it that way, or I saw someone do it that way once and he said he stopped doing it that way, so why are you still doing it like that? You know, not criticizing and just letting you know that the guy that used to do it that way don't do it that way no more. Some people can't stand that. They can't stand that kind of feedback. So they don't tell you how they do it. They gotta be sneaky. Yeah. They're like Kevin. I ain't doing it unless I get sneaky. Yeah. Then I'm all over it. Then my brain is shiny, just like in the memes. You ever see those memes where the brain is shiny? There's a shining light coming off the brain, depending on the subject matter. Yeah, some people, they don't get all tingly unless it's a certain way, you know? They don't get intellectually stimulated unless they're, as an example, they don't get intellectually stimulated unless they're trying to fool you, unless they're scamming you, unless there's a con going on. Then their brain gets all shiny. Yeah, a beam of light beams from their brain and they get all happy. Because they're fooling you. It happens a lot on social media. A lot of these social media types, they're scamming you. Yeah. And they can't help it. They just get all shiny brained if they're scamming you. It's fun for them. They don't want to be on social media unless they can scam somebody. That's why they're on there. Or they just want to argue. They have no interest in it otherwise. Yeah. So my little dog, he'd probably love social media. Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, but he'll come in one of these days. All I gotta do is leave the door open, he'll be in here. Yep. As long as he thinks he's entering without my permission, oh, he'll jump right in. He'd be just all excited. I'm in here, I'm in here, I'm in here. You didn't see me. You didn't invite me, but I'm in here. Ha ha ha. I can just see him. Yeah. So I'll just leave my door open next time a little bit. His siblings his brothers, and his one sister will probably be in here too. You have a whole gang in here at once. See, the other ones were afraid to crawl in through his opening because it's too tight. They don't want to try to fit through that really narrow space that he made for himself. I watched him. It's too tight of a squeeze for his other siblings. They're not daring. Besides, I've seen him get stuck in there before too, and I had to pull him out. Stuck halfway into the opening. Couldn't get out. He got smart and chewed a larger opening, and that reminds me, I gotta fix that so he won't be able to get in anymore. So those days are over pretty soon. Anyway, tomorrow I'll be flint napping. I think this is Monday. I have Tuesday all day to flint nap. So I'll be doing it all day. See if Kevin joins us. How's that? Try to make it so he thinks he's being sneaky. That way he'll run in by himself. Now what am I going to do about this curviness? Well, I'm obviously going to try to get that out. Oh yeah. At the risk of snapping the whole thing, you might say, no, you're going to snap it. I know. I'm very well aware that I could snap it by trying to straighten it out. And then I'll have to go to attempt number 5 and try to achieve a different result by doing the same thing. But yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to straighten that out. And if I can't straighten it out, guess what? A lot of the real ones weren't straight. Oh, yes. You collectors, you know. You other guys that don't collect artifacts, you don't know this stuff. Okay? So just go with it. Okay? Trust me. Trust me. They weren't always perfectly straight. In fact, a little bit wonky is the norm. Okay, normies? The normie arrowhead is a little bit wonky. Yeah, just like you. Yeah. Really? They're just like me? Yeah. A little bit off center. Or asymmetrical. A little bit of chaos in their life. Yeah. Just like you. Arrowheads are a lot like people. Oh, yes. Not very cooperative. I guarantee. Yes. That's one of the things you can pretty much count on with people. They're not very cooperative in many cases. You find a cooperative one, good luck, because everyone else uses that person as their slave. Oh, yeah. Hey, dude, can you help me with this? I mean, just real quick. Yeah, after I help all these other people, because they got to me first. Sorry. Dang. Yeah. And they like being cooperative. Oh, yeah. It's nice. It's nice to find a cooperative person. It's nice to find a cooperative material for your arrowheads. But, you know, you gotta fight other people for it. In the form of prices. Yeah, this stuff's not cheap. You want to buy it? You want to buy cooperative material, high quality, it's not cheap. If you can get it. 15 other people already have their eyes on it. Eyes and hands and everything else they can think of on it. They're on it already. There's no way you're going to get it. Nope. How do I know this? I don't know. It's a wild guess. Just a wild guess. Yep. It's looking very familiar, huh? I bet you're very excited that I've gotten to this point already like 4 times, right? Very excited. Say what you want to see? Yeah, I'm teasing you. You don't want to see this, really. You don't want to see multiple attempts and multiple breakages, but this is what you're going to get. Be careful what you wish for. You asked me to work these little bitty flakes with bad material because you don't want to see the good material. Nope. You want to know how to work your bad stuff. Stuff that's not cooperative. How do I get the uncooperative to be cooperative? Unfortunately, you've got to, accept some of their uncooperability. Yeah. That's a Flintknapping term. You got to accept some of their uncooperability. Got to accept it. It's just the way it is. Dang it, come on. It shouldn't be that hard to knock off a flake. Even at this scale, it wants me to hit it so hard that every strike puts me on the verge of snapping it in half. That's what it wants. It wants me to risk everything with every strike. It sounds like people I know. It wants you to risk everything with every interaction you make. Work for everything. They don't want to make it easy for you. Oh no. In fact, the harder it is for you to do it, the more they think you are worthy. If it's easy for you to do it, not worthy. Neither the person nor the action. It's got to be hard. Unless it's hard for you, it's not worth it. You're not worth it. You're not worthy. It's got to be hard. You got to work hard for it. Yeah, that's one thing I don't agree with some philosophers. I don't think it has to be hard to be worth it. Or to have value. No. It can have value, and even if you don't have to work that hard for it, it can still have value. Okay, so where am I compared to the other one? Getting a little bit bigger, but I'm going to take down the base again. This time I'm not going to go as thin, so I can finish this up. This is going to be a 2-hour video, another 2-hour video. Although I think the other one's 2.5 hours, the one just before this. Yeah, very long. But I'm glad that I'm able to upload these and not have to try to string them together. In terms of the, prep time to string them together, and also in terms of not taking so long to upload because I have a good Wi-Fi connection now. Here at my old house, I have excellent Wi-Fi. I didn't know. Well, yeah, we changed our cable service. Our Wi-Fi was never this good. Before. Yeah, I'm gonna have to live with that step fracture in there. I can try to take that out, but again, it's gonna make me work. It's gonna make me work for it if I want to take it out. Let's see. There's an undetached flake there. Some of you guys are experts at getting these out. I really don't want to spend all that much time, energy, and money on the little metal X-Acto knives that can get in there and underneath that step fracture and pop it out, because it ruins the X-Acto knife. Yeah, you can get the little X-Acto knife blade and just get it in there, but it also, the tip of the blade. Alright, let's see if I can get this neater, because it's too wonky. Yeah, I'm not saying much, so you know it's dicey. Yep. I'm working near a thin tip. All right. Now let's say that my success rate on this ends up being 1 out of 3. I'll break 3 flakes for every one good one that I make. Let's just say. What do you think? I mean, should I start with really bulky pieces, or am I breaking it toward the end? Does the flake shape actually matter? The thinness of the flake actually matter to the finished piece, or is it breaking and getting all nasty at the end of the finishing? I think what's happening is trying to finish these out is the problem. It's not really the shape of the flake or what I begin with. It's the finish out. So all that stuff, preparing the preform and getting the biface ready and all that stuff for thinning, and that's not where you guys are having problems, I bet you. I bet you're having problems on the finish out, just like I am. Well, to solve it, you got to tweak it a little bit and get it a little bit thicker. Notch is not as deep. Don't take as many risks. Unless you've got plenty of material. In this case, you do, because we're using flakes. So just keep doing it and doing it over and over again. If you're having trouble with the flakes, Just keep going, doing it over and over again. Eventually, you'll figure it out. That little balance, that balancing act you got to do. Not too thick, not too thin, not too fragile, not too bulky. And eventually it'll get done. And don't try to rush it. The next time you do it, the finish out is the main issue. So be very careful on the finish out. The final finishing, whatever you want to call it. Be very careful. And I'm going a little wider on the notch too. How'd they make them with narrow notches? Practice, practice. Keep insisting on doing the impossible. Eventually you'll get there. Yeah, just keep doing the same thing over and over again until you finally get different result. Yep. Ouch, that poked me. I'm getting a little bit of wobble there because it's thicker, and this end poked me. It didn't cut, it just kind of poked. Yeah, I'm not saying much because it's dicey. I gotta be very careful about how I'm approaching that bottom of the notch. It doesn't do much good to make a deep notch if you're gonna blow away the sides too, so I gotta be aware of that. You know, you can make a notch as deep as you want, but if you're blowing away the sides, you're defeating the notch depth. Because when you repair the sides, the notch gets less deep. Yeah, and this time I'm using the spatula tool on the edge, so I don't get this little white crushy powdery edge. Yeah. Because there's minimal contact. Minimal contact means minimal crushing. Hour and 48 minutes. Now you might say, well, you worked on a large blade this long and you said you're burned out on them. You're making one of these small points and it's taking you that long and you're not burnt out on this? So, sounds like a bunch of BS on those large blades. What you say about that? Yeah. With this, I'm not wasting material. Yeah. I used 3 or 4 small flakes. 4 small flakes. Ultimately, each one of these takes less than an hour and 45 or hour and 48 minutes. I've made, what, 4 attempts? This is the 5th attempt? This is the 4th attempt. So, it's not that I've been working on this one point that whole time. Yeah. And as I get better, I can make 2 or 3 in an hour and 45 minutes. But it's not like I can make 10 of them. If I can make one in 14 minutes, does that mean that I can make 10 in 140 minutes? No. Got to be careful. Got to be careful. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Just because you can make one in 14 minutes doesn't mean that you can make 10 in 140 minutes. Nope. All right, so I got a little bit of time. This time I'm going to be gentle with the flaking on the base. The notch is not too deep. The concavity not too deep. It's approximately the same size that I'm trying to achieve. The notches are a little bit higher. You see how they're just a little bit higher? It's a little bit wonky, not as straight. So I didn't try to straighten it all out. So I reduced the quality of the point somewhat to get it done. There's a lot of the original surface still on this side. On this one, I tried to get it flaked on both sides. So there's a little bit of a compromise in the amount of symmetry and boldness and aesthetic look, but it's finished. And as I do more of these, they just start looking better and better. But I can't be expected to increase my time on these, although it will get better also. And just keep it in mind, you know, if you try to make these better and better every time, it might not, the material might not allow you to get faster at this, but you can get it to look prettier. That's my advice. All right, so there you go. Hope that was helpful on how to make these out of flakes. It's a little bitty arrowhead. I can make them out of chert or any material basically. And I'll make some more of these with different materials. All right.